My invitation sends Anna's expression into a frozen mask of consternation, and she blinks past me, eyes trained on the wall. I would have thought the real bombshell here would be the realization that we are not, in fact, divorced. But she appears to have weathered that one with relative calm. It seems to be the suggestion that I need her to act like my wife that sent her into a mental spiral. Of course, that could be the gummy. Regardless of what's going on in that brain of hers, I don't blame her for being upset. Yes, it was her responsibility to read through any legal documents before signing, and it would have been incredibly bad for both of us had she become seriously involved with someone. But we seem to have dodged that bullet. Now we just have the cannonball of Ray Weston to contend with, and I feel like a dick already knowing I won't warn her about how bad it might be. I need her to say yes too desperately. And so I wait, letting her think through this. That was an excerpt from, the first quarter of The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. And the question that might be on some people's minds is, why did I read this when this is about reading my bookshelf? And if you know this book, you know that it's kind of a newer book. It came out in the past few months. And the answer to that is, in the space of time since I last recorded, I kind of ended up in a book club in the hopes of getting to make friends. And so, in my whole attempt to read my bookshelf, I'm kind of now going to be adding books to my bookshelf, which I really did not want to do. If you go back to episode 1, I think I talked about that for a bit. But, it'll also maybe break up some of the monotony of reading books that are older, because a lot of the books that I have are not, new rotation, what TikTok is talking about, or even what BookTube is really talking about to a certain extent. So, maybe this will be a good thing, just to keep current as well. It'll hopefully be a good thing to develop friendships with people in real life too, because that is something that is hard when you are extremely introverted and work from home. So we will see how that all goes. But this was the book that was chosen for month 1 of this book club I'm in. And I believe a lot of the thought process is because, 1, it's romance. Romance is pretty easy to read, especially in a straight female group, or a group that would identify primarily as straight, I guess I should say. I don't like presuming people's sexuality when it's not something I really think about a whole lot personally. But romance is easy to read. It's quick to get through, and it's easy to digest. So I think it made sense as a good starting point, really, when you think about the group. That being said, this book, I love romance. I don't know that I could say I loved this book, but I'll get into that later. Brief summary, that excerpt kind of gives you an idea, but our 2 leads, Liam and Anna, were married for convenience once upon a time. And the book sets it up, and you're expected to believe that they basically were married, living together for, at least I think it was a couple years. And then they go their separate ways. But they never really got to know each other during the entire time they lived together. There's this whole thing where Liam didn't know that she actually changed her major because this was during college. And then there's also this thing that Anna doesn't actually know Liam's name. She thinks she knows his name, but what she knows is a nickname. And so she just never connected who he was, what his last name was, what his family had their hands in, because his family turns out to be a wealthy conglomerate type of family. And there's just a lot of things about that setup that kind of feels a little unbelievable. But turns out that Liam is due to inherit money, partially because they got married, and if they get divorced before a certain time, he will not get that money. And so they commence to pretend to be married because it has come to a point where his family won't take her not being there, I guess, for an answer. Like, they don't really believe what he's saying anymore to an extent. And so he feels the need to have her come forth and pretend to be his wife. And she is down for it, essentially. She needs money. There's some monetary situations going on. She's a struggling artist. Her father has health issues. And this kind of like comes at like the right moment for her to say yes. So you've just got the right mix of things, I guess, for her to be okay. As characters, they're okay. Anna isn't the most relatable to me, and that's probably just because of decisions that I've made would be different than hers. Just to even get to said points, on one hand, I respect that she sticks with art because I love music, but I mean, I don't feel like I can let myself just go and try to be a musician full time when, you know, I have to pay bills. And I mean, I get the sense and the stress of feeling that financial responsibility at times, but I've approached things differently than she has, and maybe some of that's been opportunity and some of that has been location, because it's very different living in the Midwest than it is out in California. And I mean, those are things to say, yeah, that's understandable. I will say that Anna kind of comes off as a bit more impulsive and brash than I can relate to, and maybe that's also kind of a good thing, because when you're reading romance, you know, sometimes self-insert is what you're looking for, and other times, you know, it really isn't. I don't tend to want something I can self-insert myself into, but I do like to relate to the character in a lot of ways because, you know, there is an element of escapism, and I'm not immune to that, you know. Liam, I don't know. He doesn't, I think, reveal things like he should when he should. Granted, when things come out, the way Anna responds, I don't always find to be, I mean, the best, if I'm being brutally honest. But again, like, they are meant to be flawed characters, and they're also meant to be probably the best characters in the book, too, because you're supposed to like them. And you can tell that there was good ideas and intentions written behind these characters. I wonder, like, too, just fleshing out the two main characters, how that worked, especially with this author, in quotes. If you aren't familiar with Christina Lauren for some reason, I know a lot of people in the romance genre, or specifically modern romance, read Christina Lauren. And Christina Lauren is technically two people, and they're a pair of best friends who write together, which is interesting. I don't know how I would do with having a co-author, especially with books that are romance geared. And one of the things about romance in today's day and age, which, I mean, I could do a whole episode about, is what we now refer to as spiciness. And I mean, I don't think I'd feel comfortable writing anything like that with another person. I mean, in some ways, I don't really even feel comfortable writing that by myself. And I mean, I have my own reasons for that, and that's fair. But I mean, again, this is just, it's a par for the course for a romance book. And this book is, if you're going to talk about spiciness, it's quite a spicy pepper. I'll get more into that in a minute. Otherwise, as far as characters go, I don't know that I feel the need to, like, highlight anyone explicitly. It's been a minute since I read the book, and maybe that's part of why. But you basically need to understand Liam and Anna, they're the 2 point of views that you get. And then there is Liam's family that we spend a lot of time with because they're on vacation with Liam's family. And then there is Anna's situation. So, to briefly describe the 2 families, you've got Liam is the middle brother of his family. He has an older brother who's a lot like their dad in looks, but not with the brains. Their dad is also like really clearly meant to be narcissistic, and he's the villain of the story. The older brother kind of leans into this villain arc too, mainly through making decisions out of stupidity. His wife is kind of just there for the fun, and then they have kids that are all named after U.S. Republican presidents, which I think it's meant to be a gag, and it is kind of funny. It gives you kind of the vibe that people probably would want to associate with this family, and I mean, connotation-wise, it gives you what you need to know. Then Liam, and then there's the younger brother, and there's a sister. I can't remember if the younger brother is older than the sister or not. The younger brother is like cool, laid-back dude, and that is how Anna met Liam, is because she's friends with the younger brother. The sister is getting married, and everyone is actually on vacation on this island, like resort island that is, it's a resort private island, goodness. And, you know, they're all there for her wedding to her husband, who has a very amusing name, which also plays off of a joke given earlier about Liam and his nickname. But his family is very dysfunctional. Again, the dad is kind of a narcissist who manipulates his children in a lot of ways, and the book spends a lot of time with how that's affected Liam. It does not really go into how it's affected maybe his younger brother in this. Well, it does talk about how it's affected his younger brother, but it's different. The sister is also kind of like protected from everything, and the older brother, he plays with the dad's games essentially, but like can't see through them. Anna's family, on the other hand, Anna's mother is out of the picture. Her father is sick, so Anna feels financially responsible for him. And then Anna has a best friend who, she's not really with them for most of the book. She spends some time with Anna doing, like, you know, the shopping montage, or what would be a shopping montage if it was a movie. And then she turns into, I'm going to check in on your dad while you're gone and just send you updates. But, I mean, the vibe is that Anna is a struggling artist, financially responsible for her dad. Liam is rich boy who is actually not working in the family business because there has been a falling out between him and his dad over his dad being narcissistic. And just big drama. I don't want to, like, spoil it necessarily. Themes in this book. I mean, I've already talked about the family stuff. Family dynamics is a big theme. I think it's the more compelling theme in this book, if I'm being honest, and I wish more time was spent on digging into that. Especially because I think that the authors wanted to contrast what's a toxic family dynamic with, you know, a healthy family dynamic. Especially because the toxic family on the outside would look healthy because, you know, you've got everyone with very stable jobs, and, you know, people are in married couples, etc. But then, like, on the other family, which is actually the healthy family, there's like a broken marriage scenario and financial struggles, etc. And it's like, you know, what you see on the outside doesn't reflect what's on the inside. And I wish there had been more for the two families to interact. I know that's not really the focus of the book for the setting and that purpose, um, especially because the book really does primarily take place on this private resort island, and Anna's family isn't there, obviously. The other big theme, obviously, because this is a romance book, is romance. And what is a romantic relationship like? Or, what types of elements get involved into the romantic relationship, which is where my opinion kind of starts to come through. This book is written with, generally good writing. I think my issue is this, in general, I don't want to call it a romance book. And that might be because of the spiciness, where just how everything plays out. A lot of the time when Anna and Liam are together, there's a lot more of ogling, and then it leads into stuff, instead of really talking about the issues, which I think is part of why things blow up the way they do at the end. Obviously there's a happy ending, and I feel fine saying that because, that would be par for the course with this type of thing. But it's still something that I just feel like there was a lot of unnecessary spice scenes, because they didn't add anything to the relationship, and it also kind of kept the relationship at a surface level for a lot longer than I personally would have thought it should be. I think that also you kind of miss out on the fact that they have known each other for years but didn't really know each other at all. And that is a big question mark, because how do you live with someone that long? And I don't know. Everyone I have lived with, I have had, a pretty close relationship with. Minus maybe one person, but that wasn't even a year of living with that person, Everyone else, I know them pretty well. Maybe I'd feel different if I wasn't an only kid and there were more people in my house growing up. I don't know, but I find that really unbelievable. And I think it would have been more compelling had we seen the relationship then, or had them start to work some of these things out a lot sooner instead of the book starting when it did. Granted, the reason this happens, I think, is because of the tropical location, which is perfect for, a summer read, essentially, if you're gonna want to read a book quickly while you're on vacation or something at the beach. I think that was what this was really marketed and geared towards. And in that case, I get it. You want to spend time at the beach in your book, and that is perfectly fine. It did give it an element where, even though I've not read this book came to mind, which is Crazy Rich Asians. I have seen the movie, and there's just a lot of things that I saw in parallels. Not with maybe the themes involving culture, because there wasn't anything stressed with culture in that way, just because of, the ethnicities of the people we're dealing with in this book comparatively. But the sense of going to somewhere tropical and, romantic-y beach type thing, and you're, in this case, they're pretending to be in a relationship, and you have to appease the parents, and there was kind of a vibe there that really seemed to fit that niche for me. Another thing that kind of sticks out, which is actually a positive with this book, is that it's willing to have fun with itself, and it's not going to take itself as serious as maybe another book would. And that's perfectly fine and good. It actually works in this book's favor, in my opinion. Especially if, as I said, this is kind of marketed in my mind as a quick beach read type of deal. And those are valid to exist, and it's worth having them exist because, we need to read light things sometimes. We can't all just live with heavy topics. But, one of the things that stuck out, and I kind of wish I could have found it again for the quote excerpt, is that there's at least once where Twilight is referenced. And that just felt like exactly where we're gonna, cap this book, Not that it's like Twilight, but it knows its audience, and it knows not to take itself too seriously and to have fun with it. And that is something I think that gets lost a lot these days, especially with how quickly we want to look for the next literary phenomenon of excellent, pristine writing. I remember not that long ago, I think it was maybe 2022 when Babel came out, which I have that on my to be read list. I actually have a copy. I've never read it yet. But there were lots of people that were very quick to call that book great. And I think people are always looking for the next thing of that caliber. So we shall see what to come in the future. I will read more romance books because I have some in my own library. A lot of my romance picks, though, tend to be either classics or that romance is mixed with suspense or mystery or even fantasy, really. We've already kind of read that into some extent with Once Upon a River, although that would be even lighter than what I would normally say is romance entwining. But I hope this review / talk of my thoughts on this book finds you well, and I will catch you in another episode as I am catching back up on these. So bye for now.